Welcome to the motherfucking relay where we're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Wilder on Joshua. Hearn degraded him. 15 mil and no percentage.
Money again?
Now, I want y'all to pay attention to something here, because he doesn't say anything you don't expect him to say. He's saying that Eddie Hearn degraded him by not offering him a percentage and offering him 15 mil flat. Now, it should be becoming clearer and clearer to you guys that Wilder's biggest discrepancy, or at least one of his biggest discrepancies with Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn, is the money that they offered him for the fight. But the thing is, the money that they offered him for the fight, well, that's more money than you've ever made.
A lot more.
I mean, how could you say that they're degrading you by offering you 15 million,
15 million
when you only made 2.1 million going life or death with Luis Ortiz, a fight that you could have lost? You're having a fight like that you could have lost for only 2.1 million, but you're saying that these guys are degrading you by offering you 15 million? It's inconsistent. It doesn't make sense. Now, Wilder was quoted as saying, "How low can you think of a person to degrade a man of my stature and what I've done for this sport?
What?
No matter what you think of me, 15 million and no percentage," Wilder asked. When you gave a guy lower than me that has done nothing for the sport a percentage,
What?
but you want to give the baddest man on the planet no percentage, it don't get no clearer than that they don't want to fight. Now, peep this shit. This is what I mean when I say that Wilder has delusions of grandeur. Joseph Parker is no more and no less, well, at least he was at that time. Joseph Parker at that time was no more and no less a champion than Deontay Wilder. That's just the truth. Neither one of them were pay-per-view attractions, neither one of them. Neither one of them were widely regarded as marquee fighters and big names, household names, neither one of them. Yet Deontay Wilder's talking about himself like he's Floyd fucking Mayweather. He's talking about himself like he's Floyd Mayweather, and what did he say about Parker? A guy who's done nothing for the sport. Did I hear that right?
Wow.
Joseph Parker did nothing for the sport. Let me fill you in. Because Americans tend to live in a bubble, and I think that's America's problem as a country and as a people. Americans live in a bubble. What Joseph Parker did for the sport of boxing, particular to his region of the world, New Zealand, is he gave them a champion that they can root for. New Zealand doesn't produce championship boxers anywhere near as frequently as the United States or the United Kingdom or some Eastern European countries. Those guys don't always get to say that we've got a champion. But that's what Joseph Parker was to them. That's what he was to his people, the people of New Zealand. The people of New Zealand who don't always get to see one of their own holding a world title. I mean, for you guys that are watching this video, you fucking tell me. How many championship boxers can you name off the top of your head that come from New Zealand? I gather that you won't be able to name that many because, quite honestly, in the history of the sport of boxing, there weren't that many. But according to Wilder, Joseph Parker has done nothing for the sport, and he is the self-proclaimed baddest man on the planet. And you guys wonder why guys like me say that this guy's got delusions of grandeur. He thinks of himself in a scope that he has not. Honestly, for you to say that Parker did nothing for the sport, but what you did, what'd you do?
Seriously.
Bear in mind that he's accusing Eddie Hearn of denigrating a man, to thinking of a man as being low. But it seems that you don't have a very high, or you didn't have a very high opinion of Joseph Parker, and you're denigrating him. You're acting as if he's done nothing for the sport of boxing. I think it's harder, call me crazy, but I think it's harder for a guy from New Zealand to become a champion in the sport of boxing than it is for a guy in America.
You think?
You know, America's got more outlets for a guy to become a championship boxer than a guy from New Zealand.
Yeah.
Just as well, America has a bigger audience overall.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but hey, whatever. Let's get back to the point.
Let's do that.
Deontay Wilder's biggest gripe seems to be money, and I've been saying this over and over on repeat as this entire saga has carried on, that Deontay Wilder's holding out for more money. Don't be fooled by the gimmicks. Don't be fooled by the bullshit. His problem is he wants more money. And the thing is that at the time these negotiations first began, at the time that these guys first started talking to each other, what Team Wilder really wanted was to cash in on Joshua's revenue stream. That's what they wanted. They wanted a slice of his piece of the pie. Whereas now, it seems what they're trying to do is what they should have been doing a long time ago, raising Deontay Wilder's marquee value. That's what they should have been doing. That way, when they come to the negotiation table with a guy like Joshua, they're bringing something to the table. Not just the belt, but they're actually bringing in a revenue stream of their own. And that allows them certain powers. The power to haggle, the power to negotiate.
For more bread.
If the Tyson-Fury fight is real, if the fight comes off and Wilder is the victor, then he will have effectively raised his profile, not just with the American fans that are already aware of him, but with the UK fans. The UK fans who know exactly who Tyson Fury is. They know that this is Anthony Joshua's biggest domestic rival. And if Wilder beats him, if he beats him and becomes the lineal champion, if he beats him, he will have effectively raised his stock with those people. Now those people know exactly who he is. They'll know. In that way, it can have a positive effect on future negotiations with Anthony Joshua. But as it stands, the previous set of negotiations, what we just saw from April till, From April till June. What we just saw there, well, that was little more than Deontay Wilder's handlers trying to cut a big slice out of Anthony Joshua's pie, his revenue stream. You're going to a marquee fighter who generates his own revenue without you. He generates way more money than you do. You're going to that guy and you're telling that guy, you're trying to dictate to that guy what he should give you. And you don't have the power to do that.
Not yet.
And the $15 million flat that he was offered was already kind of a generous offer. I mean, it was a bit. It could have stood to have been a little higher, maybe. But for a guy who's going life or death for $2.1 million, and that's his highest purse, $15 million is far from denigrating anyone. I'll tell you what, Eddie Hearn offers me $15 million. Not only can Anthony Joshua punch me in the face, he can punch my grandmother in the chest. No, I'm just playing. The point here is that Deontay Wilder wants to be treated a certain way at the negotiation table, and the biggest problem with that is that the legwork wasn't put in the past to make him a marquee fighter in the present, so that he can really haggle for the kind of percentages and dollar amounts that he wants. That legwork wasn't put in the past. It's being put in now, okay? This is 40 fights in, but it's being put in now. Now, if the Tyson-Fury fight comes off and it's a pay-per-view, if it is a pay-per-view fight, as Stefan Espinoza said in a previous article that I talked about in my last video, if it is a pay-per-view fight, then that does help Wilder's argument. If the fight is a pay-per-view fight and it generates good numbers and people get paid and Wilder gets paid, you know, then okay, that strengthens his argument. But at the time that these negotiations first took place, this guy was in no position to ask for what he was asking for. Quite honestly, it's pretty obvious that what Wilder's after is a better offer. What he's after is more money. And he's saying this himself, that after he beats Fury, he wants the fans to put the pressure on Joshua to fight him. Essentially, he wants the fans to get involved. He wants the fans to get involved so that they can make the fight bigger. Because fan demand, as we all know, creates fights. And while there might already be a fan demand for this fight, because a lot of people know about this fight, a lot of celebrities know about this fight, while a lot of people already know about this fight, while there already is a fan demand for the fight, that fan demand isn't big enough for Wilder's tastes. He wants a bigger piece of the pie, thus, he wants more fan demand. More fans to get involved to make the fight even bigger. That way, when they do come to the table and they do negotiate
each other
for the fight, you know, he'll get a bigger piece of the pie because the fight will have effectively become a bigger fight. Now, Wilder's dick and the booty fans, they're going to keep telling themselves whatever lies they want to tell themselves. They're going to keep telling themselves that Joshua ducked this guy and that Joshua stalled him, when in reality, Wilder and his team are the ones that did all the stalling because they didn't like the kind of money that they were offered. But they didn't have the power and the leverage to get more money, so they used stall tactics to find a way to delay the fight but avert being blamed for it, when it is in fact them that, you know, they're the ones that are stalling.
Well, he says that you've got till now, till about, I think, December time to sign for April the 13th at Wembley. Is that true?
No, because we're not fighting him on April 13th, because he does not want to fight us.
Wilder's fans are the main motherfuckers that'll say some dumb shit like,
why y'all always talking about money?
Because Wilder's holding out for more money.
Well, why shouldn't he get more money?
But didn't you just fucking ask me why we're always talking about money? You know, look, these guys, they can't decide whether or not they want Wilder to raise his profile to get more money, or whether or not they want to be mad that the fight isn't next, when it can't be both ways. If Wilder wants to get a bigger cut, then he's got to raise his profile. He's waited a long enough time to do it, but that's what he's got to do. Now, the Tyson-Fury fight, it could do that. But if it can do that, I don't see why these guys are even still complaining. And I don't even see why Wilder's still taking shots. Essentially,
if it's real.
If this fight is real, which some people don't think it is, some people are still skeptical, even now. But if the fight is real, you don't even need to be worried about Anthony Joshua or Eddie Hearn anymore, because supposedly you're about to participate in a mega fight, right? I mean, Frank Warren says that this fight might be as big as Mike Tyson versus Lennox Lewis. That was a $100 million fight. So according to him, well, you're about to participate in a $100 million fight, right? So if that's what's going on, if that's what's really going on, then what are you guys still worried about Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua for? You've got each other. I mean, according to Frank Warren, it's a 50-50 split, right? And according to Frank Warren, this fight is as big as the Mike Tyson versus Lennox Lewis fight. Well, that was a $100 million fight, and these guys supposedly have a 50-50 split. So we should be expecting Deontay Wilder to get $50 million. It's a lot of money, isn't it? It's a lot of money. We should be expecting him to get that based on things that Frank Warren said. And as we all know, Wilder's fans have taken a liking to quoting Frank Warren, right? They've taken a liking to believing whatever he says. Well, if you believe everything he says, then you've got to believe that this is a $100 million fight, and Deontay Wilder is about to make $50 million. You've got to believe that. And anything short of that, well, that's going to make old Frank, that's going to make old Fish Eyes, it's going to make him look like a liar. You know, I'm just wondering, I'm sitting around here wondering, and I'm thinking that if I've got a $50 million fight ahead of me, right? I stand to make $50 million my next fight, and the guy that I'm fighting, he really hasn't faced an elite opponent in a very long time, right? So things are kind of working in my favor right now. I'm participating in a big fight, $50 million fight. If that were me, I wouldn't still even be thinking about Anthony Joshua or Eddie Hearn or $15 million or trying to get a percentage of that. Why would you sit around thinking about a percentage that you didn't get from an Eddie Hearn, Anthony Joshua situation when supposedly you've got a 50-50 split in what is a $100 million fight, according to Frank Warren? And you guys, Wilder fans out there that are watching this video and gritting their teeth and shaking their fists at me and typing mean things in the comments, y'all like to quote Frank, right? Y'all believe shit that Frank say. Frank told y'all, hey, I saw the 50 million. Y'all believe him, right? Well, then you gotta believe this is a $100 million fight, because you believe everything he says now, right? Well, he says that this is as big a fight as the Tyson versus Lewis fight. So I guess you're expecting that Wilder makes $50 million for this fight, if it comes off. Oh, what? You're gonna be selective with what you believe when it comes to Frank Warren now? I thought you guys had made a habit of quoting Frank Warren. You guys believe whatever he says, right? Come on, man, you gotta be consistent now. I feel like I'm stating the obvious, but it needs to be stated, okay? That these guys are using each other for the synergy that they can produce with each other. They're just doing all of this to make Anthony Joshua look bad. At the end of the day, we still don't know if the fight is going to come off. That's just the truth. Hopefully it does, for Wilder's sake and for the sake of his sycophant fans, because they're going to be really disappointed if the fight doesn't come off. But if it does, it should be beneficial to Wilder. I do think that it's a fight that he can win. I'm not sure he's going to make $50 million off of that fight. But you know, hey, you never know. You can be optimistic. This much we know. These guys have opted to combine, you know, to join forces for what is the biggest fight they can have aside from a Joshua fight. They've decided to join forces that, you know what, if you can't get Joshua to give you what you want, this is your next best bet. This is probably the biggest fight you could have outside of a Joshua fight. Hopefully it all pans out, but if it doesn't, you fanboys, you're gonna have a lot of mud in your eye.